Pope Francis, the 266th Pontiff of the Catholic Church, passed away on April 21, 2025. He was 88 years old. His death followed a brief hospitalization for pneumonia, a recurring ailment in his later years. The news, announced in the early hours from the Vatican, was met with a global outpouring of grief and tributes. Pope Francis's final public appearance was a poignant one. He delivered the traditional Easter Sunday blessing just 2 days before his passing. Despite visible fatigue, his message resonated with his trademark warmth and empathy, urging peace and understanding in a troubled world. The Vatican confirmed that the Pope died peacefully in his residence, surrounded by close aides and medical staff. The official cause of death was heart failure, a complication arising from his battle with pneumonia. News of his passing spread rapidly, dominating headlines and social media feeds worldwide. World leaders, religious figures, and ordinary people alike paused to reflect on the life and legacy of the beloved pontiff. The death of a pope ushers in a unique period of mourning for the Catholic Church, a time for reflection and remembrance. This period, known as sede vacante, which is Latin for vacant seat, lasts until a new pope is elected. During sede vacante, the College of Cardinals assumes governance of the Church. However, their authority is limited, focusing primarily on day-to-day administrative matters. Major decisions and pronouncements are reserved for the next pope. The Vatican observes 9 official days of mourning known as Novendialis. During this time, Pope Francis will lie in state in St. Peter's Basilica, allowing the faithful to pay their respects. Millions are expected to travel to Rome to bid farewell to the beloved pontiff. Across the globe, Catholic churches will hold special masses and prayer services in honor of Pope Francis. Bells will toll, flags will fly at half-mast, and the faithful will gather to remember a pope who touched countless lives with his humility and compassion. With the passing of Pope Francis, the focus now shifts to the selection of his successor. This weighty responsibility falls upon the College of Cardinals, who will convene in a conclave, a centuries-old tradition shrouded in secrecy. Cardinals under the age of 80, known as cardinal electors, are eligible to participate in the conclave. These men, hailing from all corners of the globe, represent the diversity and universality of the Catholic Church. The conclave will take place within the confines of the Sistine Chapel, its famed frescoes serving as a backdrop to this pivotal moment. The doors will be sealed, isolating the cardinals from outside influence as they discern the will of the Holy Spirit. Speculation is rife regarding potential candidates, with names like Cardinal Tagle of the Philippines, Cardinal Cerny of Canada, and Cardinal Parolin, the Vatican's Secretary of State, frequently mentioned. However, the conclave often produces surprises, and predicting its outcome remains a fool's errand. The conclave is a process steeped in tradition and ritual, designed to ensure a prayerful and deliberate selection of the next pope. Once the cardinals are sequestered within the Sistine Chapel, the outside world catches only glimpses of their deliberations. Each day, the cardinals participate in rounds of secret balloting. They inscribe their choice for pope on a small piece of paper, then approach the altar one by one to cast their vote. A 2/3 majority is required for election. After each round, the ballots are burned. Black smoke rising from the chimney atop the Sistine Chapel signals an unsuccessful vote. White smoke, accompanied by the ringing of bells, heralds the election of a new pope. The newly elected pope then chooses his papal name and is formally introduced to the world from the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica. It is a moment of immense joy and anticipation for the Catholic faithful, eager to learn the direction their new shepherd will guide them. The next pope inherits a church facing numerous challenges in the 21st century. The ongoing sexual abuse crisis, questions about church teachings on social issues, and declining religious affiliation in parts of the world are just a few of the issues demanding attention. The abuse crisis, in particular, casts a long shadow. The next pope must continue Pope Francis's efforts to foster healing and reconciliation among victims, while implementing concrete measures to prevent future abuse and hold perpetrators accountable. The Church also grapples with questions of doctrine and practice, particularly regarding issues like same-sex marriage, contraception, and the role of women in the Church. The next pope must navigate these complex theological and pastoral challenges with wisdom and sensitivity. Furthermore, the Catholic Church faces a changing religious landscape, with secularism on the rise in many parts of the world. The next pope must find ways to engage a generation increasingly distant from organized religion. A church in crisis, confronting the shadow of abuse. The sexual abuse crisis within the Catholic Church remains a deeply painful and challenging issue. Pope Francis, while making some strides in addressing the crisis, acknowledged that much work remains to be done. Victims and their advocates argue that the Church must go beyond apologies and financial settlements. They demand transparency, accountability, and a genuine commitment to changing the culture that allowed abuse to flourish for so long. The next pope must make this issue a top priority, working tirelessly to bring healing to victims, hold abusers accountable, and implement robust safeguarding measures to prevent future abuse. Failure to do so risks further eroding the Church's moral authority and alienating the faithful. Addressing the abuse crisis requires a multifaceted approach. This includes greater transparency, cooperating fully with civil authorities, and ensuring that seminaries and other church institutions are safe environments. Pope Francis, a legacy of compassion and reform. Pope Francis will be remembered for his emphasis on mercy, compassion, and outreach to the marginalized. He championed the poor, the sick, and the imprisoned, urging a church that is a field hospital after battle. He challenged the Church to move beyond rigid pronouncements and embrace a more welcoming and inclusive posture. His papacy emphasized dialogue, encounter, and accompaniment, particularly with those on the peripheries of society. Pope Francis also made strides in reforming the Vatican bureaucracy, promoting greater transparency and accountability. He streamlined the Vatican's finances and established a council of cardinals to advise him on governing the Church. His efforts earned him both praise and criticism. Some lauded his humility and pastoral approach, while others questioned his theological positions and approach to church governance. Regardless, Pope Francis leaves an indelible mark on the papacy. Global remembrances, leaders, and faithful honor Pope Francis. The death of Pope Francis elicited an outpouring of tributes from world leaders, religious figures, and ordinary people touched by his life and ministry. They remembered him as a man of peace, a champion of the poor, and a voice of conscience for our times. Political leaders, including President Biden, former President Obama, and King Charles III of England, praised Pope Francis's commitment to social justice, environmental protection, and interfaith dialogue. They acknowledged his role as a global moral leader. Religious figures from across Christian denominations and other faiths expressed admiration for Pope Francis's humility, his focus on the poor and marginalized, and his efforts to promote understanding and reconciliation. They recognized him as a bridge builder between faiths. But perhaps the most heartfelt tributes came from ordinary people, Catholics and non-Catholics alike, who were inspired by Pope Francis's example of compassion, humility, and service to others. They shared stories of how his words and actions touched their lives. Continuity and change, charting the future of the Catholic Church. As the Catholic Church bids farewell to Pope Francis and prepares to welcome a new pontiff, questions about continuity and change loom large. The next pope will inherit both the challenges and the opportunities that face the Church in the 21st century. Will the next pope continue Pope Francis's emphasis on mercy, compassion, and outreach to the margins? Or will he chart a different course focusing on doctrinal clarity and a more traditional approach to church governance? The answer, in all likelihood, will involve a blend of both. The Catholic Church, while rooted in tradition, has always demonstrated a remarkable capacity for adaptation and renewal. The next pope will need to balance a respect for tradition with a willingness to address the challenges of the modern world. He will need to be both a guardian of the faith and a pastor who accompanies his flock on their journey. The selection of a new pope is a moment of great significance for the Catholic Church. It is a time for prayer, discernment, and hope, as the faithful look to the future with a mix of anticipation and uncertainty.